No,
It just takes a.
oh.
Okay, we're live, Jenny.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our first remote meeting. I have something to read before we get started. Until further notice, meetings of the Sustainability and Environmental Advisory Commission will be held electronically, with a majority of members participating via remote access in order to comply with the State of Illinois excuse me, gubernatorial disaster proclamation. Members of the public who wish to comment as to an item on the published agenda must submit their statement or question in writing to elizabeth.zimmerman@skokie.org, and all properly submitted statements or questions will be presented and read during the relevant portion of the meeting. Written comments may also be submitted by email to citizencomments@skokie.org or by mail to Village of Skokie. Attention, Elizabeth Zimmerman, 5127 Oakton Street, Skokie, Illinois, 60077, or via the Village's Dropbox located by the public entry to Village Hall. Okay, so we have a quorum, so we can get started. The first item on our agenda is a welcome of our new commissioner. And if you want to unmute yourself, Emily, although you've technically been on the commission for over a year, we haven't actually met. So if you want to introduce yourself, and then we can each go around and introduce ourselves.
Sure, that sounds great. Hi, everyone. My name is Emily Okalau. I'm a resident of Skokie for 4 years now, or going on 4 years. Should I speak to my background or?
Yeah, if you want to, talk about your background and.
Sure. So my most recent background is in urban forestry, but my specialty and what I specialize in is community conservation. So essentially how people and the environment work together and live together, and how we can make good decisions for the environment so that people can be happy as well, and we can have healthy ecosystems. So for the last about 4 years, I was working for the Chicago Region Trees Initiative based at the Mwrd Arboretum, but I started a new job on February 1st for the city of Evanston, and I'm working in their Public Services Bureau. Basically, I am working with forestry and greens, so parkways, parks, and just sort of all the environmental things and sustainability, and also working with the public. So I'm bringing all that together to create like a robust environmental program in Evanston.
Cool. Well, sounds like a really good background for our commission, and you and Liz have a lot in common, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess I'll go next. Jenny Grossman, and I have been the chair of the commission for about 6 years, maybe. I am an attorney during the day, well, and at night too, I guess. And I have a certificate in environmental law, although I never went into environmental practice. And am a lifelong resident of Skokie with some brief time being in Chicago and out for college. And I have 4 kids who are all 8 and under, and that's about it, I guess. Bob, if you want to go next, we'll go in the square here.
I'm Bob Render. I've lived in Skokie pretty much all my life except for college, a little bit in Chicago. So I'm currently in the house I live in since 1989. I've been in the metals and plastic recycling business pretty much, again, my entire professional career. Today I work for a plastic distributor, and I help customers put recycled content in their products and research new technology in recycling, like advanced recycling, chemical recycling. So that's what I do.
Randy, you want to go next?
Yeah. Hi, Emily and everyone. I've missed you all. It's good to, I'm glad we're back together. I am a village trustee here in the village of Skokie and the liaison to the Sustainable Environmental Advisory Commission. I've been on the commission since 2007 when it was founded, and very happy to serve in this capacity. So welcome, Emily.
Andrew?
Yes, hi. Nice to finally meet you, Emily. My name is Andrew Kinnear. I've been in Skokie. I've been living in Skokie since 2007. I joined the commission in July of 2011. And by day, I actually work for an online magazine. I'm the associate editor, mostly focusing on books as well as environmental issues, climate change, that sort of thing, and theater as well. And yeah, I just kind of got involved because environmental issues were a focus of mine for, well, ever since I was little, and went over to the local public school to address the issue of littering when we were, at the time we were living in the city, but and it just kind of took off from there. I think it's always been important to me. And when I found out about the commission, I kind of jumped in, and so yeah, July will be 10 years officially that I've been serving on the commission.
Thank you. Jim?
Hello, welcome to the commission, Emily. My name is Jim McNellis. I've been on the commission, oh gosh, I don't know how many years, somewhere in between 5 and 10, somewhere less than Andrew, but and I work in the energy industry. I actually work for the gas company, People's Gas, North Shore Gas. And I've lived in Skokie since 1995. We raised our family here. They've gone to school here. And yeah, that's about it. Welcome.
Thank you. Mike?
Hi, I'm Mike Gershpine. I grew up in Skokie. I moved back to Skokie. I've been here a long time, and I've been on the commission, not as long as Andrew, but nobody's been on as long as Andrew. Maybe 6-7 years. Not as long as Jim either. So I think you must have been on like 7 or 8 years. I've got a son virtually attending Niles North for the remainder of his senior year, and I have my own business, which is a technology training company. So I teach about technology and I fix technology and all that kind of stuff. Although I'm a librarian by trade, haven't worked that in a while. Anyway, welcome aboard.
Thanks. Charlie?
Welcome, Emily. I'm Charlie Sachs. I've been on the commission. I've been a resident of Skokie since 2003, I think. Been on the commission for about 6 years. I work downtown, or when I go downtown to work, it's the office is downtown. I've been working remotely since last March. My interest is I'm a avid cyclist, a bike commuter, commute year-round daily to the Loop when not in quarantine or under pandemic circumstances. So I've missed my commute. And that's my primary interest in the commission. Welcome aboard.
Lisa?
Emily and I already know each other. We're on SEAD. We're getting our SEAD training together. But I've been on the commission more than 5 years, and Skokie resident for more than 20, and I'm a stay-at-home mom.
Thanks. Rick?
Okay, I'm Rick Moskowitz. You can see by my name on there. You can actually read it now, right? Up till December 1st, I owned A+ Pest Control in Oakton. It was 4120 Oakton, which on December 1st, we sold it to Smithereen. We sold the company. It was time, And so we moved out of there, and my house became looked like hoarders when I moved everything back home. And not anymore though. And I now have an office in the basement, and I'm going to be repping them, and they will do green pest control if you request it. Okay, and they're taking good care of my customers. However, we had a second company called Plus Natural Solutions Worldwide. And we make green products, including many, many pesticides for bed bugs, fruit flies, mosquitoes, head lice, all kinds of things. And so we're in the process of growing that again, moved it to the basement. And so we have natural products. We have one cleaning product too, and very, very safe. And we actually, as A+ Pest Control, we were the Business of the Year in Skokie, 2016-17. I've been on the commission since, I don't know, what's it, 6 or 7 years too. So I know it's unusual to have a pest control guy on environmental commission, but not with me. People know me like Randy, right? And so I've been around a long time, and here I am. I'm still alive. Almost wasn't, but I am now.
Good.
So
Good.
I want to say I used to always sing, "We do it like we live there," and everyone went, but now I'm doing, "We make it like we live there." Okay.
Thanks, Rick. Libby, who is having visual issues. Can you hear us? Hold on. And maybe audio issues. All right, we'll come back to you. Chris, are you there? I don't see you, but.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah,
Just have it off for bandwidth. I don't know if it's working.
I forgot to unmute myself.
Well, let it go first. I'll wait.
Okay. Sorry, go ahead, Libby. Thanks.
I'll come back. Come back. Oh, okay.
It's fine.
Sorry
Go
about that. Anyway, Libby Mahoney, and on the commission for 5+ years. I have a long-standing interest in the environment, and I really look forward to working with fellow commissioners on some projects in the coming years.
All right, thanks. You sound like a robot, but I got it.
Yeah, I think there's some technical difficulties.
All right, Chris, take it away.
Yeah, so with Libby's thing, there might actually be a bandwidth thing with the router. I've noticed that's with Zoom. Sometimes that's what happens, or her system just can't handle it. It's sometimes energy intensive. I'm Chris Bacola. I've been on the commission since 2016, I think. My background is in sustainability. I majored in sustainability at Arizona State University, one of the first programs in the country that actually had a sustainability program. Been around here ever since. I'm actually currently working on getting my LEED certification. And, I've been in Skokie my entire life, except for school and travels. I used to actually work with Liz at Public Works, during my summer work and everything. So yeah, that's about it.
Thank you. Okay.
I just want to know if Charlie rides his bike in the snow.
Not recently. I actually just recently had hip replacement surgery, so I've been recovering from that.
Well, hope that's going well. That's a fun process.
It's actually going really well, but yeah.
Good. All right. Liz, last but not least.
Oh, Max is here too, so I'll hand it over to him. So my background's in urban forestry and horticulture, and I recently moved into public works administration, and have been learning a lot about the different green initiatives, and it's been a great year. So excited to have everybody back.
Hi, everybody. Good to see you again. I'm Max Slankard, Director of Public Works. I've been with the Village of Skokie for almost 15 years now. So I've been working with the Environmental Commission from the inception of the group. So welcome, Emily. Good to see you all again. And that's it. Thanks.
All right. The next item on our agenda is the approval of the minutes from our last meeting, which were from February 2020. Is there a motion to adopt the minutes? Rick, second? Anyone?
Second, this is Jim.
All right. All those in favor? Hand. All right. Looks unanimous.
Aye.
Okay. Next item on our agenda, under old business, is the community solar update, and I will turn that over to you, Liz.
Sure. I just got an update this week. The news is all good. Just as a little bit of a recap, Skokie entered in with others in the Electric Aggregation Consortium, and we worked with a consultant to endorse, North Shore Community Solar. It was a program that had terms and conditions that we really liked. It had social equity benefit of not requiring a credit check, and it offered good savings of 20% off of net metering credits. And so as the program stands today, from all of the communities participating, we have 2,397 enrollments, and of those, Skokie has 232 with another 120 on the wait list. The program will be ongoing, and so I'll be working with Ann Tennis with marketing, to advertise it. Again, I just wanted to reach out to the consultant later this week to kind of see where we're at as far as duration of a wait list and time that marketing, so that people weren't being on a wait list for too long. But we're really happy with the participation, and I'd be happy to take any questions if anybody has any.
Lisa?
Yeah, so it started for some people because I signed up a long time ago and it didn't start for me yet. How do you know when it starts?
So the first people that signed up, the program turned over quickly. And essentially, though, when that amount of solar farm is filled up with subscriptions, they have to wait for a new developer a new farm to open up, essentially. And so I had signed up, I think, I can't remember, in fall, and it was a lengthy wait process, but I was just contacted a week or two ago. And I know there's several other members on the commission that got in at various times. I know Andrew got in really quickly. He was on it very quickly, and I know Trustee Roberts maybe had a little bit more of a wait like I did. And so the program is moving, and there's supposed to be a lot of solar farms opening up this first quarter of 2021.
So is it over 200 people who signed up, or over 200 people who are currently on it? I'm sorry if I didn't.
Yeah, no, enrolled. And so 232 people are enrolled in the program, and the billing should start. And then there's another 120 people, sounds like you might be one of those, that's waiting to hear back for your enrollment information.
I don't want to sort of cut anyone off, but I will add also, I just I have my email here because I did notice that in my experience, I don't know if it has been anyone else's experience, but in our account anyway, it has taken a little bit of time between enrollment and actually being sort of switched over and seeing those sort of credits start to apply. So it's like within the first 2 billing cycles, it just has like a section for the community solar, but basically it's blank or shows 0 kilowatt hours, etc. So basically there's a place, but nothing generated. I reached out to MC², and I actually heard back very quickly from their manager of regional sales and community solar. And it seems like with the next billing cycle, it will start to appear on our bill. So there can be a little bit of time before you actually are fully enrolled.
Lisa, did you actually get enrolled, or are you saying that you didn't actually ever get enrolled for the thing? Because mine when I signed up, it only took like a month to get them to say, now you can enroll now. I was on the wait list for only a month.
I did everything all back in November, and I thought,
and you haven't gotten
I
anything?
was enrolled, but my bills don't say one word about it. Like I really thought I was enrolled. So
yeah,
originally it was a wait list, and then you got approval from the wait list and then you had to go and enroll. It's like COVID testing, except it took a lot less time.
Yeah, the wait list did get longer, Michael. So it as more people signed up, that wait list did get longer.
But she signed up, I think, before me, and it took me a lot less time.
Oh,
yeah, I mean, it only took me. If she signed up back in October, I think I signed up after that. It only took a month or two, I think, if I remember it correctly. In other words, I would double check, Lisa, that you didn't get something or contact them or something.
Andrew said he just started.
Yeah, actually.
Mine said it would kick in March.
Yeah, in our case, for instance, I looked at the details, and apparently it's associated with a solar farm in Mendota. And actually, I have an email here. It's very short. It says, "Good afternoon. Solar project was just energized at the end of December. We've enrolled your account on Community Solar with ComEd, but from a timing perspective, you should start to receive net metering credits starting on your February-March bill. Your energy supply will continue to be with ComEd so that you can receive maximum benefits of the program. Let me know if you have any additional questions." So I did receive a response within about 2.5 hours of sending the email, which is also pretty responsive. But yeah, so there can be a little bit of a gap between when you're enrolled and when you start to see the net metering credits, at least in my experience.
And Lisa, I think I enrolled I think I signed up on the wait list in November, and I just got enrolled last week, so.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat as Lisa. I signed up in November. I'm still on the wait list. So.
Okay, that's all that I have. I will check.
If I could chime in real quick.
Sure.
It looks like I signed up. I mean, I have no particular connections. I signed up in December, and I just got my notice last week, so it's a little bit strange.
Yeah.
Maybe they're just going by looks.
Yeah, I'll definitely ask about the wait list. I do have a meeting this week and just kind of see where they're at and what those timelines are. I should have more information for the next meeting.
Okay, thanks. Next on our agenda, we're going to move on to some new business. The first item there is the Sidewalk Gap Program. And Liz, if you want to take that one.
Sure. We do have some funding available to, build some new sidewalks in some areas of town that currently do not have sidewalks, and we call it our Sidewalk Gap Program. Because Skokie has a good percentage of our town does have sidewalks, and so we do have a comprehensive map of where we are missing sidewalks. And I think a month ago or 6 weeks ago, or I don't know, time is flying, I had sent an email to the commission to see if anybody's interested in volunteering and taking a look at those gaps and prioritizing them. And then the next step would be to send letters to those blocks and see what the interest is in the residents or adjacent businesses or whoever the property owner is in participating in the program. The Sidewalk Gap Program would be free to the property owner. And we have worked out kind of a rating criterion. My Zoom screen is a little odd because it's on live stream. Let me see if I can exit and show that. It's right here. Okay, is my screen being shared? Because I can't tell under this live stream. It's not, okay.
Just you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's weird. That is missing from my, well, I can do it the old fashioned way. It's not very complicated. I can just read off what the different criteria are, and it's certainly open for suggestions. So, two of the things I think we're looking at is how much of a priority is the location to have a sidewalk? Is there a school nearby? Is there a bus stop? Is there a synagogue or a church or a mosque and those types of things? Is it a thoroughfare? But then we're also looking at feasibility of putting a sidewalk in. So, are there tree conflicts? Does it have to be a curb attached sidewalk, which isn't quite as useful in the winter time and those factors. And so I can just kind of go through a little bit of how we scored. And again, this is not final. So the first rating criteria that we came up with was no or few tree conflicts. And that's, you know, just the trees are often a big reason why the sidewalks can't go in and why people don't want the sidewalks. It adds a lot of cost to the project. Environmentally, we don't want to be cutting trees down if we have other locations to do. And so we did assign that 30 points out of 100. The second rating was, is it near a school or another destination, such as a synagogue, church, mosque, bus stop, stores, restaurants, the library, things of that nature. And we assigned that 30 points as well. But to kind of standardize, you know, in the notes, we do have to help the judging committee is if it's 4 or less blocks from the school, that would be a full 30 points. And then I think like 5 to 6 blocks, 15 points, and more than that would be 10 points. Whether the location is a thoroughfare or secondary thoroughfare, that would pose a higher risk to pedestrians, 15 points. Neither side of the street has a sidewalk, 15 points. And if a sidewalk were to be installed, it will connect to another sidewalk. And I think in the past, we had often thought of this as being linear, but in order to kind of complete the Sidewalk Gap program, and I know, you know, just from a quality of life standpoint with having small children and things like that, it doesn't necessarily have to be linear. For example, if it connected at the corner to a sidewalk that ran, you know, if a north-south sidewalk connected to an east-west, that would certainly count for those points. And so that's it. It's a fairly simple rating system, and I'm definitely interested in hearing any thoughts on it.
Bob?
Question on the reading. If a resident requests a sidewalk for accessibility concerns, does that add into the score? And then the second question is maybe an obvious question, but do we have to do eminent domain kind of recovery of the property, or is this part of the parkway easement?
So the first question, that's a great question. We definitely want to know if there's a block that wants a sidewalk. And so I should add that in there just in case, as you're in your travels and you're looking at sidewalks, if you come across residents that want it, absolutely, we want to have successes in this program, and that would help prioritize that location. The second comment, I don't know if Max wants to speak a little bit, but I think we had talked about maybe it being a petition or 50% of the block wanting the sidewalk. Yeah.
Does that include alleys too? Is it alleys too? Or just sidewalks?
What do you mean when you say include alleys?
I mean, they're not paved.
No, there's a whole separate process. If folks want to do paving of alleys, there's a whole special assessment process that's prescribed for paving of alleys. And at its core, yes, it does involve resident sort of pre-agreeing to participate in excess of 50%, as I'm recalling. And I've been here 15 years, and we've never had anybody bring forward a petition for paving in an alley. So that's why I'm a little fuzzy on the details, because it just really doesn't happen. Because as I'm recalling, it's a significant expense, and I don't recall offhand what the cost level of participation is, but I believe the cost of those improvements has to be borne largely by the adjoining property owners. So that's really sort of a separate subject matter. And if there's an interest on the part of the commission and understanding that, I can certainly provide more information. With respect to the sidewalk gaps, certainly I think the village, by taking this approach to the sidewalks, we're certainly sort of looking for where we have receptivity in an area. We've certainly had experiences in the past where you have maybe 1 or 2 advocates on a block who would like to see a sidewalk gap filled in, and those sometimes become sort of buzz saws in a neighborhood where you find a lot of other opposition on the block. So the village, would like to be able to accomplish some of these projects, but we really are looking for where we have an opportunity to do some good, where there is a strong level of neighborhood interest, because we're not necessarily looking to, cause issues that come before the village board. We're really looking for where there's opportunity and receptivity.
I was just pointing specifically to someone who made a request based on accessibility, whether that went up a score, and that was what it related to.
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting comment. I mean, I think that's something we would need to think about. There certainly may be special circumstances like that, and I don't know how we would work that in to a score sheet, but that's something we should think about, definitely. I think that's a good comment.
Well, and to piggyback on that also, I'm wondering if, there might be areas where there are people who are more reliant on walking in order to, get places that they need to go, such as grocery stores or, get to bus stops or things like that. I know that you mentioned, proximity to bus stops and proximity to schools and synagogues and churches and mosques, but I'm wondering to what extent also we need to consider, are there areas like, are people more likely to own cars if they live in residential area, like heavily single family residential, right? And then are there areas where it's like more multifamily units, and would they be more likely to make use of sidewalks? Just like, and these are sort of stereotypes, but I'm just wondering if there, if we can think about like the residents who would benefit the most, right, from having an easier path to grocery stores or whatever it may be.
Yeah, I think that was probably one of our starting points in thinking about reaching out to the commission members for their help in helping us assess that, is exactly sort of those sorts of things, is where does it really make sense from a resident standpoint to be focusing these efforts. And so I think that's another comment that's extremely well made. I mean, I think those are sort of exactly the sorts of things that we need to be thinking about, because you're right. There are very definitely certain segments and areas of the community where those things are more important or may be more important. And so I think we're trying to look for those inputs sort of at a gut or an intuitive level, perhaps, from your folks' standpoint. And if we can somehow take that a step further and incorporate that into scoring, that would be great. Might be challenging, but that would be great. So I think that's sort of the gut level, the sort of inputs we're looking for.
And this might be a little bit further than this might be maybe a little bit more work than this project warrants. But I'm wondering if also reaching out to those institutions and asking them, if they have particular ideas about, where their constituents live and where there would be most benefit. They might, as community leaders, they might have ideas about those needs.
Yeah, it's another great thought. Thank you.
Yeah, and so I'm going to be reaching out to the commissioners. Right now, it's on a little bit of hold. I'm working with our GIS department to export the map into Excel for block numbers and street names. I should have that at the end of this week. I'd wanted to get rolling on a little bit earlier, and then there's 2 feet of snow on the ground anyway, and so so I think being delayed a week or two isn't terrible, but I will be reaching out soon to those commissioners that volunteered for the project, and we're excited to get going on that.
Yeah. Lost my agenda. Okay. Next on our agenda is an update on spring greening.
Spring greening is still up in the air a little bit. Unfortunately, the high schools are not allowing any outside entities to use their facilities for events right now. And so As many of you know who've participated in the event, traffic is a huge concern for that event. And so we've been working with the Park District and also Swank. As it stands right now, we're still trying to hold an event that would have electronics recycling and paper shredding. Again, the challenges with the traffic queue, we did look at a few locations that just weren't a good fit and would have created some major problems at intersections. We have one location left that we're still trying to work on. As of today, I was not able to get an update on that location. So as soon as we find something out, we're going to try to let the public know either way on that event. That one has been definitely challenging with the COVID restrictions and so forth.
Would it
You say that there are places that that the schools aren't allowing you to use your facilities, but this is still primarily or entirely an outside thing, right? Parking lot thing. Yeah,
I mean, we did reach out to the school, and it was a firm no for using Niles North facility. We did have kind of a second idea on a facility that had a very large parking lot. The traffic queue would have gone straight towards an intersection that just wouldn't have been able to handle the traffic. We're looking at a third location right now that we believe would be a good location, but it's a private partner in town, and we certainly need their permission to hold it in their parking lot. And so that's where we're at for that event. We're still hopeful that we can make that happen, but we're just not sure at this point.
Is there any thought of pushing it back like farther, like into the summer or something at all, instead of keeping it in the spring?
Yes, you know, we are partners with the Park District, so there's a chance of hosting it. They have a lot of programming, and we rely on them for a lot of volunteers and organization to run it. I believe the second proposed date was on Halloween. That was the earliest that they could maybe hold that event if this date fell through. You know, people are going to be busy with trick-or-treating and other events and that type of thing. And so we're trying to make this one work if we can. But that's an alternate idea that we're looking at.
Does Swank have a cutoff date by which they stop hosting events?
I don't think so. Yeah, I mean, they've been working with us pretty closely. They're, you know, they're like us. They want to get the event done this year if we can.
Cool.
Is there any thoughts about maybe making it like a ticketed, free ticket, but timed entry to try and ease some of the challenges?
Yeah, that's a good idea. I had been trying to think of like a drop-off event or something, and part of the problem is that people want to be there to see their paper being shredded because it's their personal documents. So that's a good idea.
And paint was, we were gonna be able to do paint on this one?
No, so the extra vendors, that takes a lot of time to coordinate. The event was extensive, and so it had a lot of different entities there collecting materials. And since the most popular items were the paper shredding and the electronics, and so Swank has been working with us pretty closely, and we felt that we could get an event together pretty quickly with just those two events being held. And so paint was unfortunately cut from this year's event.
All right, thank you. Next, an update on our biking infrastructure progress.
Yeah, I talked to Eric Cook today. He's our engineer for the village. Although nothing's being constructed, we're mostly in phase 2 of several different projects. 2022 is going to be a great year for increasing our biking in town. So some of those projects that are coming up are the Skokie Valley Trail extension from Dempster to Gulf, Church Street bike lanes. There's going to be a bike trail over by Niles West. And then there's also going to be one going in adjacent to the cemetery on Grosse Pointe Road that will connect to Old Orchard. So it's going to be a big year for biking in 2022 as far as getting some more infrastructure in town.
Do you know if there's any change in the status of the Old Orchard highway overpass, since that's that last missing piece there? I know that keeps getting pushed off and
Still pushed off, so we don't get to send an update.
Yeah, Max just said it. There's no update on that, but we're gonna reach out to Eric on maybe sending them a letter to see kind of what the status is there.
I'm sorry, Jenny, can you just summarize that really quickly?
Yeah, so the highway overpass over Old Orchard Road has been slated to be rebuilt for years. You know, it was supposed to be, I think 2018 was originally, in 19. Every year it gets pushed off for various reasons. You know, it's a big project, it's the state, etc. And you know, now the state has had other necessary priorities the last year. So the Old Orchard, it's been filling in to get from the North Branch over at Harms, and it goes up to where the North Shore, the building on Old Orchard Road, and then with the section between Grosse Pointe and Skokie Boulevard, so that last piece from Skokie Boulevard to the highway overpass.
Would that project, would the rebuilding of the overpass create a bike side path or a bike lane from the overpass itself to Skokie Boulevard, so that you could connect with the side path that's on Old Orchard between Skokie Boulevard and Grosse Pointe?
It will definitely create a side path on the south side of the bridge deck, so it will get you across the Edens, and it will go past Lawler going east, as I recall. It will leave the one section that will not be sort of the idealized width, as I'm recalling offhand, and I'll have Eric Cook send us an update, so we'll send that out to you. As I'm recalling, is from the mall sort of entrance drive to Skokie Boulevard. That's currently, if I'm recalling offhand, is sidewalk width.
Yeah,
I believe that will remain that way as it stands now. So that will be the only section. So it'll still be an irritant to you, Charlie, similar to that last
I just ride the street
of the Howard Street Trail, or Howard Street Trail down by the MWRD plant. That will be the challenge, I think, to that true multi-use path segment.
although we bike on there a lot, and there's rarely any walkers there. So it's just on the outside of the mall. So there's no residential property over there.
Right.
You know,
But there wouldn't be
pretty
any
much empty
formal
or
bike
bike.
facility. There wouldn't be any formal bike facility, you know, by the mall. There's no plan to put something like that in.
As it stands now, no. So that's
cool.
would be the missing link, but as there is a way there now, yes.
Okay. And is there an update on the MWRD? That was being held up by an intergovernmental agreement. Is there any progress on that?
Not as of yet.
Okay. And how about, I know Niles is putting in bike lanes and side path on Howard Street. And where does that become Skokie? Is that at Central or?
I think
and is it?
I believe that on Howard Street, it would be at Grosse Pointe.
At Grosse Pointe?
On the north side, it is at Central on the south side. If I'm
Okay.
correctly.
And is there any plan to create a bike facility on Howard Street there either a bike lane or anything, or is the Niles project just going to stop at that point?
I believe there are no plans that I'm aware of on the Skokie side.
Okay.
Again, I will check with Eric, but not that I'm recalling, Charlie.
Okay.
Anybody else have anything about bike infrastructure?
There is the the Crawford Avenue reconstruction project that had a that's in phase 1, I think it is, engineering, and there was a they solicited input, and there was a survey and a meeting, and there was a number of people that attended that virtually who had expressed an interest in having bike facilities on Crawford Street. So that was encouraging.
Yeah, several of the options had, almost all of them, I mean, there were 3 or 5, something like that, had bike options, which was interesting.
So I apologize if I'm speaking out of turn, but as all of you know, I have no idea. This is my first introduction to all of this. So I'm just wondering if there's any sort of thoughts about ensuring that like every elementary school has, bike lanes, like not obviously, I mean, just thinking about like how we might get kids into biking, and ensuring that the schools have paths so that kids can bike to school. Or bike routes, even they don't even have to be, specific lanes.
That touches on the sidewalk project we've been talking about, and as a commission, we've been talking for a couple of years about. I know Charlie's been involved with safe routes to schools, just ensuring that students have ways to get to school, whether they walk or bike, and like younger children, either their parents or they don't feel comfortable riding in the street. And so if there are at least the sidewalk infrastructure there for them to get safely to schools, a lot of I know in 73.5, that's more in a residential area. Some of the other schools either are on busier streets or have to cross busy streets. A lot of kids come from where they have to cross, so maybe as a focus, the kids aren't necessarily riding their bikes to the school from all of the district, but certainly, like the school that we're in, I know a handful of kids ride, but we don't have sidewalks around Highland School, so they are in the street there.
I think that's a pretty significant issue. It needs some attention. Absolutely.
Which, I mean, especially I personally am not the most coordinated of people, I think it's safe to say. So I don't ride a bike, but I think it addresses a couple of issues. One of them being obviously health issue. So people aren't just totally, going from the car to the school, from the school to the car, and there's more of an active, physical activity. I think is kind of an important thing, and it's addressing obviously emissions, which are a big driver of climate change. So I think it is definitely an important thing in multiple ways, though, to ensure that there's a safe way for them to use these alternatives. So it's a good thing that the program exists, but yeah. Definitely.
Well, another side of it is that schools are huge generators of traffic. And if we can reduce the amount of people that are relying on automobiles or required to take automobiles to school, then we can reduce traffic in residential neighborhoods.
And, I think we always look at kids as like, if you can build good habits, like good environmental habits in kids, right? If you can sort of sway them when they're young by providing, I don't want to say peer pressure, but, just showing them that this is a thing that people do, they're more likely to do it, and less likely to, they're less likely to be innovators. And so if they see that lots of kids are doing this, lots of adults are doing it, they're more likely to do it. And I think it also addresses issues of equity as well, just giving them access, ensuring that all kids have access to things.
Yeah, really good point. Okay. I think we can move on to next step for subcommittees, which is every year anyways, around this time, we kind of take a step back and evaluate where each subcommittee is with the initiatives they've been working on, how they did with what they were doing in the previous year, and set some goals for the upcoming year. This year, we also are working with an eye towards, this is the last year of the current sustainability plan. And so kind of wrapping up what we've done in the plan, what there is still to do in the plan, which there's still a lot in the plan to touch on, and what we focus on going forward, since we haven't met in a while. Other than the talks we've had about sidewalks, there's not really much that we've done in the last year. I know, Lisa, you said that your water is listed there first. You guys don't really have an update. I don't know if you guys want to just talk a little bit about your thoughts.
I could say a couple things, maybe.
Yeah.
Also Olivia. Also, I don't know that everybody's on a committee, and I know that we could use another person. We've had VJ, but we could use another person. Someone wants to join water, but last time I wasn't at the last meeting, and I saw some things that you guys were saying about letting people know about good times to water. And it's even in the plan that, but it is by Skokie rules that there's certain times of day when you're not supposed to water, but I know that's not being enforced, and it's hard to have rules and things that are into place. I know Skokie doesn't want to start ticketing residents or whatever, but it doesn't necessarily have to be a ticket. It could be a friendly reminder. This is not the right time to water, and these are the rules. I mean, you don't have to have a penalty attached to it, just letting people know. That's one of the things. And remember, I don't know if you guys remember that we talked about one of the things in the plan was supposed to be to review the village codes for opportunity to promote permeable sources. And we talked about maybe if we could have a rebate or extra quick process for permitting if somebody is planning on doing permeable surface, what kind of incentives that we can do for that. And I feel like that's where we left off, unless Olivia might have some other things that she remembers.
Can you even hear me?
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, great. Okay. Yeah, it's been a while. I don't really think there's too much more to add, but I think it'd be good to revisit all of this and kind of restart. I do recall that conversation at our last meeting, which now is over a year ago. I feel like some of the goals we need to refresh. We didn't get very far on the permeability. So I'm not sure where we could go with that. I agree with the watering, but how do you roll that out? It should be part of a larger effort, so it doesn't seem so punitive. So I just feel like I would like to, as the water subcommittee, start over again or start fresh, and yes, definitely have a third member or more if we could. I think there are possibly other things we could be suggesting to people in terms, again, getting back to gardening and using more native plants, because it really does require less watering. The rain barrels project was really popular, but I'm not sure what's happened to that. So, yeah.
Yeah, you guys have for the last few years done a lot of educational things, and we haven't had the opportunity for that, although a lot of what you're talking about is not even public forums, but just getting information out there.
Mm-hmm.
And we've kind of always had issues with space in New Skokie. There's competition for getting information out there, but since we haven't really done much in a while, I don't know what the village is. Most of what New Skokie is mostly COVID related, for good reason, but how things will be going forward in terms of, since commissions are getting back up and just,
Yeah, I don't know if anybody's subscribed to the e-news or the e-blasts. They've, those go out weekly, so we can certainly get that sprinkler information in there. And then there's room in the New Skokie for probably one article each edition as well.
Okay.
I wonder if one approach also might be, this might be getting ahead of the intention for this meeting, but I wonder if one approach is just, just from a purely sort of like what's good for plants, like horticultural, it's not good to water in the middle of the day. So like you're not doing your own self a favor by doing that. And so I wonder if that could be part of the messaging as well, and then, so there's that. And then also, I wonder to what extent like social media would be something we could use. I think a fair amount of people interact on Facebook.
It would be great, but we do not have any social media presence. The village
the village doesn't.
The village and the commission both.
Yeah.
It's interesting because Ann Tennis actually popped up on Nextdoor either today or yesterday to talk about COVID. So I don't know if that's how extreme things have to get for the village to appear on social media, but clearly she or someone saw that as an avenue to get a message across, because that was in her official capacity, talking about how the village is handling COVID.
No, we have a commission.
Excuse me, I have a follow-up question. Oh, sorry.
Libby, go ahead.
We have Randy right here. Ask him the question.
So Liz, I have a question, follow-up question. You said that the East Skokie News it has plenty of room for articles. So what's the process for getting one about one of our issues?
Yeah, the e-blasts would be more of a short paragraph on something. We've been sending information out on that. We've been doing some recycling information. The problem really is everybody wants to read about either alternate side parking or when they're going to get their vaccine. And so I don't know that anybody kind of scrolls down below that. But we do try, and we do use that, as an outlet. And then New Skokie, I believe we've had an article in there every edition. We recently did one on chloride reduction, again with the recycling. There's going to be one on the compost bins again this spring. And so, yeah, those are avenues, but as Emily suggests, that social media is another consideration.
I was going to say, I know that, for instance, like I think it was last February, shortly after the recycling brochure was made available, it's part of the new resident packet as well, as far as I'm aware, and available at Village Hall. Now obviously, I don't know whether whether that's the case or not, because of COVID, and I think they're trying to obviously, and with good reason, encourage everybody to do all their business, village business online, rather than going into Village Hall. I know whenever possible, but you can also access it via our webpage. But basically, my main point is, I'm getting off into the weeds here a little bit, that they did feature the brochure in Skokie News, I think in like late February of 2020. So I know that there's definitely the opportunity for us to put stuff together, and they will put it in there. It seems like, there's definitely has been content before. So I think that seems to be a better way of reaching people, probably. I don't know what you think, Liz or Jenny, but.
Yeah, I think so. And I'll just maybe add this a little off topic is I saw some of the messaging on community solar that I think it was Highland Park or Lake Bluff did. And they showed pictures of real residents holding up signs saying, you know, no roof, no problem. And I just think that whole peer pressure and getting a photo in there is huge. And so if we can get more of the general public kind of involved and showing other people that they're into these programs, you know, whether it be somebody that just did the compost bin, you know, with a photo, I think we can make the messaging more powerful too.
Yeah, that sounds like a really good idea. I mean, I think people would be attracted to that and would read it. So, yeah.
Yeah, and we have kind of a person at Public Works who loves doing videos, and so there's always the opportunity if you have an idea for a short video. We have that capability now because we have somebody on staff that likes to do those sorts of things. So, you know, there's different avenues that we can take.
I think a short video on why you should not water in the middle of the day would be a great idea. And we could like put a link to it, you know, like, you know, and say like the ordinance actually. Yeah, sorry.
No, was it? Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, you know, the short blurb could say like the ordinance is also in place to help you be best to your plants. You know, it's not just like, you know, to be punitive also.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. I know in the past there were some videos that the village had made, informational videos that were out on their channel. So if we could get in on that, if they're still doing that, or if whoever you have, Liz.
Yeah, sometimes he likes to put it to heavy metal music, and so we'll just we'll just have to pick that background music that is more towards sustainability. But yeah, it's an option.
I've been kind of contemplating too, because I sent something to you, Liz. I know sort of a roundup of some of the highlights of what's happened, I think, over the last year, especially as we hadn't been able to meet. But I don't know what you think as far as I kind of thought, and maybe it's just me, it might be good if there would be a way to drive traffic to our webpage more, and it could kind of become some sort of information central, so to speak. And people who are interested can get a lot of their info all in one place. And if that could be made into some sort of destination, I think, you know, it would be nice to essentially update it more frequently and, you know, sort of get people engaged and that sort of thing. So I don't know what the opportunities are.
We can do that with e-blasts and so forth as well. I think one of the challenges I have with the website as somebody who's maybe my background isn't in website design is there's a lot of information on it. And so, you know, that's something as a commission we might want to talk about is, do we highlight a few programs at a time so we're not overwhelming people with information? Or is there a better way to organize the website? I'm always open to ideas. It's not my background. So please take a look at the website and provide any suggestions that you might have on organization and what should be highlighted. And if we should take things off for a period of time to make other things more prominent, you know, those are the sorts of suggestions I definitely welcome.
Yeah, I think ideally the website is a repository.
Yes.
Whereas you've got all these other channels for getting messages across, including social media and e-blasts and all that stuff, where you can focus on certain things.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that would be definitely good. I just was saying, I don't know exactly I think at one point we discussed a blog too, but there was I think there were certain barriers to the idea of a blog, and there were certain potential barriers to social media. So I don't know what the official sort of, whether there would be any barriers to sort of having more of a social media presence, and whether that's changed since we discussed it last time. But yeah, I thought I'm discussing it more as an alternative to blogs and social media. If we could do blogs and social media, I think that would be a great thing.
I'm not a big social media user, but I think the village is really well behind the curve on the use of social media. And I think there's ways the village could use the social media constructively. I'm with Michael on website. I think the website is a great repository as a resource for information that if people need to find out information about the commission or what the commission does, who's on the commission, what historically we've done, or want a copy of the sustainability plan, it's great for that. But in terms of publicizing events and projects and things like that and getting people's attention, I don't think the website, it's just to what Liz was saying, there's too much information on there, and it would be difficult to get people's attention using the website to publicize an event or activity.
Yeah, I also think that people go to our website because they're looking for something, whereas if we are putting things out there on the e-blast, or if there were to be social media accessibility, that is reaching people who aren't already seeking that type of information. If you're seeking that type of information, you might have a challenge navigating the website, but you'll find it. Whereas, putting on a video explaining to people not to water in the middle of the day, people who aren't even thinking about why that's not right aren't going to be going on our website to find out whether or not they should be, or anything.
Right. You want to be
But they might click on a link. But they might click on a link. Like if they see a link.
But if it's just on the website, I mean, it's got to be.
Yeah.
I think it's good to lead them to the website, but just to have we need more than just the website. We need a way to reach people who aren't thinking of it already, and then, raise this issue to them. Then they go and find out.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I think your commissioners, your points are well taken. I think the village started out, I think they were kind of taking a go slow approach with looking at how much resource it takes to manage these and to kind of police them, out of fear of like renegade people taking over some of these. But it seems to me that the police Facebook page has proved very successful. So I think it's time to look to reevaluate, and I think this would be a great opportunity to further, the goals of this commission, since we're all about education. So I think this would be a perfect time for the village to start to reevaluate and to use social media more for environmental issues. So I think it's good points that you're making tonight.
There are two things to keep in mind when you talk about it as well. You're talking about the village's controlled social media, if the village had a Facebook page or a Twitter account or YouTube channel, all those things. But you're also talking about having a presence where these conversations are happening. So, Skokie has Facebook pages, it has next door conversations going on where people, it kind of amazes me sometimes that people are out there on these social media challenges asking questions that are easily answered by going to the village's website or by calling the village. But that's how a certain type of person in a certain generation communicates. So it seems to me like the village, by not being a part of these, even the ones it doesn't control, is missing out.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I noticed there's a Skokie parent Facebook groups and other types of groups, and every so often there's people from the park district who chime in and give answers when people are just talking about things that either might be giving misinformation or people don't know. Yeah. And if the village could have the same type of presence, obviously it does, as Randy points out, require more resources, but if you're looking for a way to reach the community, seems like a good way to do it.
And that misinformation point is a good one as well, because that's also happening on these places.
Yeah, next door is a great place to get the wrong answer.
Yep. Well, a lot of times, people ask questions on Skokie Parent or Nextdoor or something, and I'll just put up a link to the village website. You can sit here and talk about what you think about all these things, or you can just go to a website that gives you all the answers. Although I think sometimes people would really just prefer to sit and talk about these things online and just get the answer of the thing they're looking for.
Yeah, that's true. Yes, Mike, you're often the voice of, here's the actual information that you need.
But I think it's also, sorry, just really quickly, I think it's also important to consider that, it might seem obvious to us where these answers are on the village website, but that might be more difficult for somebody who doesn't understand that, like watering is like under public works, you know, so to
Mhm.
speak, right? Like that's not obvious, I think, for people who are not involved in stuff, these things.
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
And I think that speaks to so you know why the village does need a presence there, so that people who are obviously reaching out on Facebook as their first, how do I find this information, because they're not thinking of going to the village's website, you know, that's how they can connect. Okay, in the interest of time, let's move on to the air quality subcommittee, which actually has never really, it seems like our commission members who have been assigned to the air committee have been, that's where people who have left mostly. And so Emily, I don't know if you have interest in being on the air committee. Bob had been assigned, I think it's Bob and Rick. But you know, obviously nothing's really gone on in the last year. But air quality is one of the areas of the plan that has been under acted on, but is, you know, really important going forward. Issues of climate change, although obviously other areas are touched on it too, but that's more direct. So that's definitely something that we need to work on. Lisa, do you have something to say? Okay. Anyone want to talk about air?
Like you said, I think it would be good to you know, sort of get a little bit more. I guess there has been. I do believe you just said that. I was distracted for a minute there, but I guess there hasn't been nearly as much going on, and I think it's definitely an important part, like you said, because emissions are a huge driver, as was mentioned, of climate change. So I think that's definitely something that we probably do want to focus on.
Yeah, one of the plan itself does discuss doing an emissions assessment of the village's use, which is something I know we've talked about, but has never been done.
So like, well, one thing, I mean, like I've thought of too, is that like, do we have or I'd say employees, do they have access of literally every car? Because we have every car that gets registered with a sticker, what year is, what it is. We can literally do a layout of all the emissions of every personal vehicle in Skokie. It's really not that hard to do. We can just take the average of emissions of what that year was and everything. There's whole databases on that, and just see what our, let's say, you know, carbon footprint is for personal vehicles. And then an interesting thing would also, in tie with that, would be what's being offset with like increased electrical vehicles, you know, being used, or are we having a reduction in cars or an increase? You know, that's something to do that can help us get those numbers for trying to get quantitative data.
So,
but I just don't know, are we allowed to do that because of personal information or all that sort of things? I mean, I know we have it. It's just is it allowed to be used for?
I think the one thing I will say about that also is that like the pandemic, I mean, it was known that like, you know, personal vehicle use contributed something like 20% or 25%, depending on the area, of emissions, you know, throughout like of pollution basically throughout the world. And then the pandemic definitely demonstrated that that was true, because like when, you know, people stopped commuting in major metropolitan areas, there was only a reduction, I think, of about 20% in pollutants in the air. And so I'm wondering, like, you know, I think that that's a good focus, but I wonder if there might be like areas that might have like better focus, right? Then that might have more of an impact. Versus, you know, just, I don't know what those numbers are for Skokie though. Like I would be really curious to see
I was just thinking
how
that
that
that's like
breakdown.
a good starting point where we can just get the data that we have it. That was the thing, instead of going to like every business and trying to get output that way. So if that's information that we physically have already, that's all I was going with.
My understanding of the
can you get
plan
data?
though is that my understanding of the plan though is that it's village generated as village vehicles and buildings, not everybody who, not residents also, because in terms of, you know, reduction, that's what the village can control.
Can we get data from like the testing facility? There's one in Jarvis, you know, just get, you don't have to have names, just numbers.
No, that won't work because there's people come from all over, and it's not just limited to Skokie and everything.
Okay. But there's a database of people who live in Skokie. They could tell you.
Well, but that's, I mean, like literally, I can literally, if I had the entire list, I can literally go down a list and say, okay, how many 1996 Maximas do we have? Okay, multiply that by its offset emissions by 10,000 miles or whatever you do. Boom, there's your number. And you just do that. I'm just saying for personal, we can do that for village vehicles too.
I also was going to bring up, I think it also came up at was it the last board meeting? Because I was watching when there was a sustainability update, and somebody commented, I don't know who it was, but I think one of the comments was about how there was supposed to be a contractor who would be sort of hired or whatever by the village to do that assessment. So I don't know what the potential for that is. Like, you know, I am sure it's more involved, but is there a way for the village to get somebody to sort of look at the carbon footprint, if you will? And what does that entail? I don't know, you know, in terms of cost and everything else, what that would entail, but I think it did say by 2021 to get somebody to look at sort of the emissions, carbon footprint, whatever you want to call it. So I guess that's something of a fair question. What is our ability to do that? What does that entail? Is that like feasible, I guess is my question.
Yeah. Let me just read to you from the plan for those of you that don't have it in front of you. So there was an objective that was listed in the plan that reads, hire a contractor to conduct a greenhouse gas emissions inventory for Skokie by 2021. Local data will guide best practices. So is there an ability to do that? I think the answer to that still is yes. Who that contractor might be and what that cost might be, I think we don't know that. I would say, let us bring you additional information on that next month. It is a topic that's being discussed in at least a few other North suburban communities. I can tell you I personally had conversations with a couple of village managers in a couple of different communities that are within, say, 15 miles of here on that subject matter. There's also discussion with at least one regional consortium on that same question. And I will tell you, there are sort of two sides of that discussion right now. One of those being, there are a couple of communities, as I understand it, and this bears a little bit more research, that are embarking on their efforts to try and do that for their communities. There is also discussion at a broader level and a regional level that goes along the line of, does it make sense for any one community to do that? And isn't it more impactful for that to be done regionally? So I was hopeful to have received some information sort of from that regional perspective before you met. Hopefully we will receive something in that regard by March, but in any event, I think we should be able to evolve some more information on that prior to the commission's next meeting that might be a little bit more insightful. I think the village is still, speaking from the standpoint of the administration, I think the village is still aware that that goal is in the plan and believes that it does have, you know, the time and has the potentiality to put the resource into place to effectuate that, if that's the right step for us to take. So let us get some more information on that and we'll offer you more specifics Because as I said, there are communities out there that are approaching this both ways. I think there are some real unique challenges in putting that together and understanding what it means in a community of our size, with an Edens Expressway that runs through our community, and there's a lot of different things that go into measuring that. Just to comment real quickly on the vehicle database, we can look into that issue briefly internally. I will tell you, going back a few years ago, looking at the village's vehicle license database, in theory, all vehicles owned by residents in Skokie are expected to have a vehicle license, with some exceptions based on maybe corporate ownership or certain lease held by other entities that might be garaged in Skokie, and some of those nuances. There has always been this notion that you should be able to tie that database back to the Secretary of State's database, and in some idealized world, miraculously, those two databases would be the same, right? It stands to reason. They're both computerized databases. Hey, great, that'll work out. I can guarantee you it never does. So there have been thoughts at times that if one has the Secretary of State's databases, you could find all those people in Skokie who don't have vehicle licenses and track them down. That doesn't tend to work out very well either. So I will follow up with sort of Chief Baker from his side of the world as to that question. It's not something I've thought about in a few years, but we'll take a look at that. I mean, and as Chris pointed out, quantifying, if you will, sort of the vehicles operated by the village would be relatively straightforward. I just question in sort of the bigger picture of this discussion for the community, if that's really what we're interested in trying to gather. But yeah, certainly I can tell you, we do know those vehicles for sure.
Yeah, and I was just thinking it as just like, it's just a simple starting point, we have the ball, like, even if we're having people coming in to do an assessment and everything of greenhouse gases, is just having the most data you can and stuff expedites and just makes things easier. That's just kind of where I was going with.
Sure. Yeah, makes sense.
So I know we're pressed for time. I'd just be very interested to know when that objective was put in the plan, what the envisioned scope of work would be for that consultant, and what was going to be included and what wasn't. You made a really valid point, Max, about Edens Expressway runs from the middle through Skokie or on the edge of Skokie. We have Orchard. There's just so the question is, what is the scope of work? What are we really trying to understand? And I would think that if our goal is to reduce emissions, then some of the other programs that we're working on might have an impact on lowering emissions. It would be nice to be able to test that and actually have data to back it up. But either way, whether we do it regionally or we create some kind of a local, our own sort of version of this, I think it'd be great to have a discussion about, well, what are we measuring? What's the scope of work? What are we actually going to try to measure?
Yeah, that's something that kind of stood out to me with this discussion of the air subcommittee and air quality, and having seen the last board meeting, that kind of popped into my head because I didn't know if we did have any updates or anything or not, but I thought it kind of fits in. And I mean, yeah, I certainly don't profess to be some sort of expert in that field. So I was wondering, what the latest is, but it sounds like it's definitely being considered further than by the village. And it looks like, I guess we're getting more information, so.
Yeah, I think this is an area that we as a commission have kind of neglected. It's not like we've deliberately avoided it. It's just that for reasons of the not having the right people in the right place to really invest some energy. But I think it's something that we can pick up and take a closer look at. One of the things I think that we can do with it, yes, the Edens Expressway runs right through the village of Skokie, but the village does make land use decisions that have impacts on emissions. It would be useful to know, like, if you have a drive-through, what is the carbon footprint of a drive-through versus another type of development? And what are the opportunities to look at alternatives, and how do we weigh that? And that would give us a way to say, okay, what do we really want to do with whatever opportunities are emerging in the village?
I just quickly too, there's been a lot of discussion about air quality improvements for people who make concrete, who often get waivers, and they're very large polluters. So again, we have the possibility of making an impact by suggesting that we only use certain kinds of vendors if they are also, I don't want to create a hornet's nest, but these things, this kind of leverage does exist that we can create. That's just one example. We use vendors who control their emissions.
All right, well, I think the air subcommittee definitely has their work cut out for them, and we'll work on kind of figuring out where to go. Next is energy conservation, which has been Jim, Mike, and Chris. If you guys want to speak to where you're at.
So, obviously the committee hasn't met in a long time, but I think a lot of the activities for the village have centered around a lot of solar activity. So, kudos to Liz and Max for keeping that stuff moving forward, the solar initiatives. So, in the interest of our agenda, I think our committee just needs to get back to focusing on, what kind of initiatives do we want to refocus on in the coming year? And then also taking a look at that, the commission's environmental plan or the village's environmental plan, and see how we want to, change it for the next version. So Chris or Mike, you want to weigh in on anything?
No, I mean, I'm kind of like on the same page. I mean, some of the stuff that we've, worked on and tried on is starting to be implemented, with the solar for people's powers and all the other things, and like the zoning we were talking about. So, I mean, I think we're on a good progress, and I think looking and focusing on what should be in the next edition of the plan too, and what have gone well and what can we improve and stuff.
I don't have anything to add. I mean, the one thing that comes to mind is as far as kind of solar, which I don't know that we put any emphasis on, is battery technology as well. Storage of solar, and I don't know whether it makes sense to pursue that as a group, but Tesla and others are kind of upping their game with that type of thing. So that may be something that is worth encouraging. But anyway, yes, we need to sit down and talk.
Liz, is there anything on SoulSmart different than when we last met?
No, I mean, that program, we received a bronze certification, and kind of what that means. I really enjoyed running through that program. I thought it was really meaningful. We worked with a representative from SoulSmart, and they reviewed our village policies and our permitting procedures. We also were required to have our village electrician certified to inspect solar panels. And so there was definitely some real change that happened. We created a permit for solar panels, a checklist. So if you go to the websites looking for information on how to get solar panels, that entire process is easier. And so that's, that program is kind of complete at this point. I did forget to put electric aggregation 2.0 on here as a talking point. We're currently working on a program to go out for RFP for an alternate electrical supplier. And it would be different than the first program, just with variable rates, and the savings are very small for specific accounts, but there's some savings to be had on the aggregate of the program. And we're going to opt to see what our options are for both renewable energy credits and also a civic grant that could help with energy initiatives, converting our streetlights to LED bulbs and those sorts of things. So that's that's up and coming, and I did do a presentation at the board February 16th. That's in that PowerPoint presentation. I think I sent to all of you as well.
When was the bronze level attained?
Bronze level, I think it was last summer. So then the program closed in September or October.
Summer of 2020.
Yeah, it was during the pandemic, right?
Okay. Yeah, I can't remember seeing that, and that could be me as much as you. I'm curious whether there was any type of result or response to us getting that from Skokie, from residents in Skokie. Like, has there been any type of uptick or anything? It was interesting. I looked at solar coincidentally just for the first time this last summer, and I'm curious. And I'm curious whether you've noticed anything.
I think it's actually gone down just because a lot of the federal incentives have are starting to expire. Charlie might know more on that, but I know that there were a few years in there that were it was really popular because
there's still some, at least at the state level, I think.
There still is a tax credit. It's not as high as it used to be. I think it was 35%. Now it's down to 22%. I believe the last COVID stimulus package actually extended the solar credit. I'm not sure of that. Don't quote me on it, but I think there is an effort to continue that. At the state level, they've made the whole SREX process a lot easier, a lot more customer friendly. So you actually get that money up front. So rather than getting money paid back to you from solar renewable energy credits over time, you get to claim that up at the beginning and put that money into the installation. So that's a huge improvement at the state level. And of course, there's still the net metering in Illinois. Not all states have the net metering, but Illinois still has the net metering, which also is an incentive that it goes towards solar.
No, it's good that it sounds like at least there's still some incentive for people to do that as well, which again kind of is always a good thing and helps reduce emissions. So I'm glad. I obviously, living in a condo, I know very little about what that all entails, but I am aware that in many states, if not all states, it does seem like tax credits and stuff like that reduce over time, but I'm glad that at least here there still seems to be some of that available at least.
Yeah, I mean, part of the reality with the community solar program has been a really big one in Illinois as well. So that's generated a lot of interest. The other reality is the economy is tanked. I mean, it's not a small project to put solar on your house, and if you're uncertain about your economic circumstances or a little bit anxious, it's a $20,000 to $25,000 project. You can say, well, I'll just wait and see and make sure that I still have a job, before I dump that kind of money in.
So hopefully once things normalize, which hopefully they will before long, maybe that will also recover and there'll be a little bit of a rebound in the people who are interested in doing that, undertaking a project to install solar on their own place as well.
And I don't think I ever actually answered the question. We can definitely pull the number of permits of who's installed, 2018, 2019, 2020. So we can get that information.
Interesting. I was just looking at the SolSmart website about what does it take to move from bronze to silver. Two of the major components are staff training. So that would involve, obviously village employees, and I don't know about your guys' work, but training in my work just doesn't look the same as it used to be with the pandemic. So I think, moving from bronze to silver is definitely a goal. It's just maybe a bit more of a challenge now.
Is the program still open though? I thought it was only running through October. Does it say that on the website?
It may. I haven't found that. So yeah, I may have to do a little bit more digging for that.
Okay. Anything else on energy to share? Or
nothing from me.
Okay. Okay, moving on to transportation. That's Charlie and Andrew and myself. We've touched on bike infrastructure, the Sidewalk Gap Program also is transportation, you know, another mode of transportation. Those are, it's, you know, a big focus of the transportation subcommittee going forward. Charlie, you have anything to?
Yeah, we, hold on a second. I did a number of things over the course of with the pandemic. Of course, my bike commute got interrupted, but then I started doing some biking around the neighborhood and around the village. And I created there was an initiative from the Evanston Bike Club to create these meanders, which is basically exploring various communities. And one was put together for Skokie that I helped to do, and they're on Ride with GPS. I also then created something for the that was based on the historic historic Skokie bike tour from the Skokie Heritage Museum, and I created a bike tour for that, and I actually sent that over to them, and I hadn't heard anything, but it's something I can follow up on. I also sort of trying to build on the idea, some of the concepts at the North Branch Trail Alliance. North Branch Trail Alliance, they're based out of North Park, and they run along the North Branch Trail, and they do their theme is economic development. So visiting various locations along the North Branch Trail and doing bike trips along those and exploring various ideas. So I did that last spring for a while, and it's kind of a work in progress, but there was some stuff that was done with that. I mentioned the Crawford Avenue construction project that was going into phase 1 engineering. And so they solicited some feedback about plans for doing that. And there was quite a number of people who did speak up in favor of including bike facilities along there. There's a similar, and I'll put a link to that project page in the chat as well. You can check that out. There's a similar project in Evanston for improving the bike and pedestrian facilities between McCormick and Dodge, which would be an extension of the Church Street bike lane in Evanston. And of course, that would then eventually, that connects to the Church Street in Skokie, which is a pretty heavily traveled bike route. And eventually when we get the bike lanes there, that would make that a continuous bike lane between the North Branch Trail and downtown Evanston, which would be really nice to have that kind of connectivity. There's also some pretty important work being done in Niles on the Howard Street, again, at the crossing by the North Branch Trail. The North Branch Trail generates a lot of activity, but that Howard Street is they're putting in bike lanes and side paths on Howard Street there, and it's pretty nice what they've done. It's a pretty big improvement for cycling. I had asked earlier about the potential or the what's in the works for the Skokie side of Howard Street. In that part of Skokie, it tends to be a fairly fast industrial kind of street, so it's not a real friendly bike route, but it would be nice to be able to connect up with the stuff at Niles, and again, getting to the North Branch Trail. So that would be kind of a nice thing to do. I did email also Carrie Haberstich about Strava has their heat maps where they do crowdsourcing on bike traffic, and we've talked about doing bike audits and getting traffic counts of bike activity in the village of Skokie. And the heat maps on Strava are very interesting and kind of revealing as to what streets have bike traffic. Strava Labs does offer a service of doing a more deep dive analysis of that, and I believe the last I read is that it actually is free. They will offer free consulting to municipalities. So I emailed Carrie Haberstich about taking advantage of that, and I don't know. She said she passed that on to the engineering people in the village. Liz, do you know? Have you heard anything about that?
No, I haven't. I can follow up.
Okay, but I think that would be very helpful to have that kind of, particularly if we're looking at a sustainability plan. that kind of baseline data of what kind of bike activity there is in the village. There are some streets that you would not think that are actually quite busy. Crawford is one that is a busy street, but it also is a busy bike route. Lincoln Avenue is also a busy bike route. There is plan to put the bike lane on Lincoln, I believe, and that would help to service some existing traffic, bike traffic that already happens. So those are some of the things that I did. I also did my usual stuff. I'm teaching. I do the driver's ed class at Niles North, and my claim to fame there is that I've now gotten to the point where nobody falls asleep during my presentation. And I actually did a Zoom, did it over Zoom this past fall. Boy, that was an experience. I don't know how those teachers do it. Teaching those kids high school kids over Zoom, it's an art, let me tell you. On the busing, on the transit side, of course, we all have heard that transit has gotten hammered this past year. Obviously PACE and CTA are no exceptions to that. On the good news side is that the Dempster Pulse route did get funding before the pandemic, and that is in the works. And my understanding is that some of the infrastructure that's going to go in for that route is going to break ground this summer. Liz, is that correct? Do I have that correct?
Yeah, as far as I know.
Yeah, so that'll be a really nice transit improvement for Skokie. I mean, it'll complement the yellow line very nicely. It'll be an east-west route, where this yellow line goes primarily north-south. Yeah, that's pretty much what I have. Andrew, do you?
Yeah, I think they did mention when I think you attended the virtual sort of Active Transportation Alliance, that session, I think, where they touched a little bit on the PACE Pulse route that's going to go in Dempster. They also did talk about, and there's apparently no update on that, unfortunately. That's on hold, I guess, until after the pandemic is significantly, I'd assume, either significantly more under control or more likely basically a non-issue, essentially. There will be a phase 2 and phase 3, as far as I know, to the North Shore Transit Coordination Plan. So that is on hold, but I guess that will at some point be going forward. Since they didn't have updates, I don't know exactly whether they plan on implementing all of those changes when phase 2 does move forward, or whether they plan on dropping some of them, or what's going on. I think it's a lot of it's up in the air. I know that for the time being, as Charlie alluded to, I think because service is down, some of the routes even are on Saturday schedules. Like I know in Highland Park, 472 is on Saturday schedule only. They don't have school trips, obviously, because there's not school in session. So there's a lot of service reduction that's happening right now. And I think we'll know more. I think we'll know more when the sort of service starts to recover, at least what they plan on doing, whether they plan on making any changes to phase 2 or not. Assuming not, the 215, for instance, will be changing to serve Jefferson Park. The 226 will be changing to serve the Howard Red Line instead, and then making modifications. And there are multiple others that will be also made in phase 3, which will happen even further down the road. But for right now, all of this is kind of very much up in the air as to when they're going to proceed with the changes, whether it will be as conceived pre-pandemic or whether there'll be modifications because of the pandemic. I think that's all very unknown. Apart from that, we also, I think you attended on Friday a couple of other of the Active Transportation Alliance sessions. One of the things that I found interesting, I was able to attend, they had at 4 o'clock on Friday, this Cook County Transit Plan session. And it seems like there is some overlap, actually, where we are concerned, and I think some of their focus. So I do wonder whether there'd be more of an opportunity to work with Cook County. I don't know what you think, for instance, Charlie, or Liz, Max, you'd know better than I. But they said that they want to, for instance, they want to promote off-street, I think he said bike trails. They're trying to promote alternate modes of transportation. So I figure maybe there's some opportunity there. Also, they talked about, speaking of gaps in sidewalks, actually, there's a focus as part of their this project that they've undertaken to improve bike and pedestrian connectivity, fill sidewalk gaps near stations. I don't know if that particularly applies, but I feel like that is kind of an overlapping interest, certainly overlapping focus. They also had a lot of other interesting concepts, I think, as far as public transit is concerned itself. But yeah, I think that was a pretty informative session. I don't want to take up too much time discussing it, but I thought learned quite a lot. So there's always an opportunity to discuss in future, but I don't know what you think, if there's anything you want to mention from the Active Transportation Alliance sessions and stuff like that.
Well, they did a suburban active transit advocacy week, and they had stuff from around the region. It was very, very interesting. I did make a connection with some people in Niles, and of course I met another person from Skokie who had some interest in as well, and I'm going to continue to work with them. So that was, and like Andrew was saying, some of those presentations were quite interesting, it was nice to get those updates. That's where I got the update on the PACE Pulse, for example. PACE did a presentation. They talked about the Pulse projects, and both on Milwaukee and Bemster Avenue. So a lot of opportunity to do some things. Obviously, we're in some challenging times, but I think it'll be nice to get back together and really think through what the opportunities are for us, and how we can promote more sustainable transportation options in the village.
Right, like that's why I'm kind of talking about it. I feel like in these maybe more vague or uncertain terms, because it is has all been so impacted by the pandemic. But I think we really also will, I feel like once this hopefully is under control at some point, I hope this year, maybe we'll know more about the North Shore Transit Coordination Plan too, and what that's going to look like, and whether they'll have all those changes implemented or not.
Okay, thanks, guys. Let's move on to waste management, which is me. We're working on several items under the waste management section. One of the big ones was plastic bags, which the pandemic essentially killed any progress on that, since pretty much every grocery store and retailer was not allowing people to bring reusable bags. So, any efforts to promote reusable bags is really going nowhere. We're still, I know there was, Liz, you mentioned at the board meeting last week, one of the things we were talking about was recycling bags, and especially, I think the need is even greater with people using more plastic bags, but the issue we've had was a place to collect and sort all the there would potentially be places to drop offs around town, but then a place to collect all that. So that's something that we had been talking about, and hopefully we can pick that up again. The other thing is, shortly before the pandemic, a couple months, I guess, with Collective Resource starting the Curbside Compost Pickup Program, and we've talked about how to increase participation among residents.
That was featured in New Skokie. I think that is a great opportunity to have real customers show up in New Skokie or eBlast or something, and kind of maybe do some frequently asked questions about that program.
Okay, yeah, that's a really good, like, connecting to residents thing.
The
Those are really,
bags, yeah, I just want to touch base. I did reach out to Swank on the bags, and they have a link on their website. I think it's called Film Recycling. I haven't been on it now for a few weeks. And then you can type in your zip code, and it brings up all of the different businesses that provide plastic bag recycling or film recycling. And I actually have to say it was a lot more than I was anticipating. And I haven't been on it in a few weeks, but it's worth checking that out too, and kind of seeing. There were just a lot more options than what I thought, and I think that program has grown on the private side a lot this year.
Is that the WRAP program?
The WRAP program.
W-R-A-P? Which program is that?
Well, it's so on the Swank website, there's some information on plastic, what to do with your plastic bag, and I don't know what the program name is, but I think it was called film recycling, plastic films.
okay. I don't really have much else on waste management. Those are the two things that we've focused on. Next item on our
Jenny, do we know how many
Yeah.
people in the village are doing compost with collective resource?
Good question.
I think they're great.
100, I think. 100 people. Yeah, I think we recently got that number, and it was we were at like 99, or I think we were really close to 100.
Right, so you said 100 people enrolled, did you say?
Yeah, it's right around 100 people are enrolled in the collective resource program.
Would you be able to break that out by when, to show how many people have, when the program first started, and then each month? Or would that be something collective resource would need to provide us?
I don't think she maybe has it by month, but maybe by quarterly or year or something like that. I'll reach out to her.
Okay, I'm just curious to see the trajectory, if it's flatlined, or if it's still incrementally
Might
growing.
be interesting to kind of get. Of course, we don't want to. I was just going to say like a very broad overview of maybe the location of where. Maybe that would help us market, somehow too. Yeah.
Okay.
We might want to set a goal, just try, to 500, and just see how we can do that. I'm assuming collective has the resources to scale up, which I know is also not infinite. But
Yeah, I think that's a really good, at least some sort of goal. I don't know if maybe with their input to get an idea of, based on their knowledge of, like in a town like in Evanston, for example, where are based out of and have a more comprehensive or longer program, just to get some guidance in targeting what a goal would be. Okay. Before we move on, anybody else have anything on waste management that we've talked about? No. Okay. The next item on our agenda is setting our next meeting. We, assuming we'll go on our normal schedule. We're the fourth Tuesday of the month, right?
Yep.
So I am unavailable on the fourth Tuesday of March. But yeah, 23rd.
There is a fifth.
There are 5 Tuesdays in March this year. I don't know if Liz, what are your?
Yeah,
Max?
March 30th works for us, if it works for the group.
In a normal year, I'd be on vacation for spring break, but
Yeah.
this is not a normal year.
And available.
And we can Zoom. You can be anywhere and join the meeting.
Yeah, you can
Yeah.
tell us that you're home.
Somehow that doesn't make me feel better.
I guess you can always like set a virtual, it depends on your system. Some older systems don't support it, but you can always set a virtual background and pretend you're somewhere else.
I could ski and be on the call.
You know, make believe, and hopefully in the near future,
Yeah,
travel.
the 30th is good here, so I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
30th
Yeah,
is
good
fine.
here too.
March 30th. Sounds good. All right. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Can I ask a quick question
Yep.
before we adjourn? There was a lot of back and forth about updating I think the presentation on the update of the sustainability plan was really good last week. And I was wondering if there was going to be further documentation of that somewhere. And also, is the beginning to, or attention to the next sustainability plan, is that something we're going to attend to next week? I know we did just kind of a check-in, or next month, we just did kind of a check-in tonight, which was really good, but is that something we're planning to do?
Yeah, thank you for the comments on the presentation. I think Liz sent the presentation out. I don't know if we have a plan for any further publishing or posting of that. I'm not sure. I'm looking off screen at Liz. If we're going to do anything, I think it lives on in Village YouTube land infamy for a long time. To the comment about the plan, yeah, I think we would plan to probably talk about that at our next meeting. As I commented during the board presentation, the Board of Health did play a role in the development of the last plan. And, since the presentation last week, I've still yet to have a conversation with Mike Charlie, the village's new health director, about the Board of Health's even concept thoughts on their participation in this next plan, and practically speaking with what his day-to-day is like in the pandemic efforts and the vaccination pods and all that. Frankly, I'm not sure I'm going to get a whole lot out of him anytime soon. So I'm going to turn up my emphasis in that regard to Bruce Jones, who runs the village's environmental health division in that regard. So by next month, I will certainly have had conversations with Bruce about sort of conceptualizing a little bit more what role the Board of Health might want to play. As you all may know, Dr. Drackler was the longtime chairperson of the Board of Health, and he is retired and is no longer the chairman. And so there's been that sort of institutional leadership change in the Board of Health, as well as the health director changing. So there's a few parts that are sort of new to this equation. As well, I would point out Matt Brandmeier is the village's new community development director. And I think Matt is going to be pretty interested in this process too. I just know Matt and sort of the way he thinks about this. Definitely one, has a role to play. We talked earlier this evening about the role of land use review and decisions play on some of these environmental policies. I think Matt's going to be interested in this discussion and will be a player in this too. So we need to have some additional internal dialogue, as well as then dialogue with your commission as to sort of how these various pieces will fit together as we begin to sort of flesh out what our process might look like for this. So I think that's great fodder for next month's discussion.
Cool, thanks. Thanks.
Good question, Charlie. In an effort to not be here till 11, we thought it would be good to talk about where we are now and then.
Yeah, well, it makes total sense. I really appreciated this, the way this meeting was set up and handled, and it's glad to be back together with everybody, even virtually.
Yeah, it's nice to have an opportunity to get together again.
I move to adjourn.
Yes, there you go, Charlie. Second. That's Jim's job. Anyone? Second?
Second.
All right. We are adjourned.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay,
It was
bye,
nice
everyone.
meeting all of you.
Yeah.
You too,
Thanks,
Emily.
everybody.
Guys, later.
See ya.
Emily,
Yeah,
take
take
care.
care. Bye.
See you
Bye.
soon. Bye-bye.
Next
Bye.
month.
I think that